Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Yu-Gi-Oh video, and today we are doing a deck profile of the Mikanko deck with the new support that came out in the Japanese Tactical Tri-Deck. Actually, I still don't think it's come out yet. I think it comes out at the end of the month, but we know what the cards do. I printed proxies. I've had some time to try them. A couple of disclaimers is this deck list could probably change after a bit more playtesting, and we still don't know the rest of what's in the Tactical Tri-Deck. I don't think there's going to be any more direct Mikanko support, but I could see them coming out with generic equips that possibly we would throw in here. But for now, this is what I'm really liking for the deck, and at least you can see, you know, if you're someone that's a longtime Mikanko player, you can at least look at what I'm doing with the new cards and use that to help figure out your ratios, right? The other thing is I do have a beginner's guide to Mikanko on my channel already, so I'm planning not to explain like the base cards too much in detail, but I will kind of go over the new cards again. I did also do a video on the new cards talking about that. I'll probably link those two videos at the end in case you want to check those out, okay? So before I get into the profile, let me explain kind of the premise and concept of this, so that maybe you're not surprised as to why I made some choices. So I built this deck as an ultimate going second deck. The reason why I did that, this deck has always been a deck that likes going second, because the main premise is your opponent puts big monster on board, you attack with the 0 attacker that reflects damage, and you kind of OTK, right? That's kind of the general premise of the deck. But I feel like you're really safe building a mega going second deck, because provided your opponent doesn't know what you're playing, so if you go to, you know, anything other than your own locals where people know you, 99% of the time, people are going to want to go first anyways. So if you win the dice roll, you can choose to go second. And if you lose the dice roll, you're probably going to get second anyways. So I feel like you're very safe to build the deck this way. And then my side deck, which we'll talk about a little bit later, I side a bunch of going first stuff. Sometimes, depending on my matchup, if I lose game one, sometimes I prefer to go first, because maybe they are so overwhelming on what they put out, my board breakers still can't handle it. Then I'll want to go first, and I sided a bunch of good going first stuff that we can go with that way. Or if you think your opponent's going to be savvy enough to choose you to go first, if you win game one, then you want to have an option of going first stuff, right? So the other disclaimer here is that this is a 45 card build. I normally don't ever go above 40, but I feel like this deck has so many tools and different things I wanted to use. I really didn't want to cut stuff. And it's got a lot of searchability. So even though the deck's a little bit bigger, it has so much searching in it that I can pretty much access whatever I want. So if you're someone that likes to play 40, my recommendation, if you're going off of my build, just take like 5 cards that I have 3 of and maybe cut them down to 2, or kind of pick and choose where you want to make your cuts based on your preference. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. So obviously we're going to start with 3 Ohime. Ohime is going to be the main starter in the deck. Or one of the main starters, but this is a great card because it just searches any Mikanko card. So no matter what the situation is, based on what your hand is, you know that Ohime is going to search whatever you want, then it's going to discard to the graveyard, which this deck has a lot of graveyard tools in it, so she's just a great card. And then if you happen to summon her out, she's got some great effects there, so she's always going to be a 3 of. Ha-Rei I'm also running at 3. Not everybody runs Ha-Rei at 3, but mine is a very pure Mikanko deck, and one of the problems this deck can have is there are several Mikanko equips that, and traps as well, that pretty much require you to have a Mikanko monster for you to do anything. And I've had turns where I've bricked really bad, and I've drawn all cards that require Mikankos, and I don't have any. So I want to really increase my chances of just having a Mikanko monster. That can be very useful in the deck. Arabesque is a great draw. Like if I don't get a Mikanko monster, but I get Arabesque, as long as my opponent has something I can bounce, then I can kind of make do with that. But Ha-Rei is very good as well because her equip effect will get me more equipped cards, which helps me extend. So she's a great extender, so I think she's good at 3. Hu-Li, I think, is always a must run at 3. If you're playing pure. I've seen people do other builds where they only run 2 of Hu-Li, but I feel like Hu-Li at 3 is really what you want if you're playing pure Mikanko. She's, in my opinion, even after the new support, she is still the best Mikanko because you just control her in an equip card and your opponent can't target you. The non-targeting is really what makes this deck strong. There are so many cards in the game. I don't think you realize how many cards in the game target until you go against a non-targeting deck and you feel like how frustrating it is that you can't play like any of your cards. So I usually try to get Hu-Li out as fast as possible so that I can kind of continue my plays without interruption from targeting cards, right? So Hu-Li's amazing. Then we have Sanaki, who is the new kind of main deck monster, and I think Sanaki is also a 3 of. Sanaki's incredibly good, so I'll review her effect really quick because she is the new one. basically when she gets equipped with something, you get to specially Mikanko from your deck. And then her second effect is she can bounce a Mikanko card from field to hand. And her third effect is if she's sent to the graveyard, you can equip her to a Mikanko. The third, or actually I think it's just equipped to a monster. It doesn't even have to equip to Mikanko. The third effect, I don't really find that useful, to be honest, other than if I'm in some kind of really grindy game, she gets sent to the graveyard, I could just equip it to one of my Mikankos on the field to get their on equip effect to search. That's fine. But the really good part about her is obviously the summoning from deck. Pretty much Sanaki is a one card, like Sanaki and an equip turns into your Xyz monster, which is the main thing that you're going to want, right? And then Sanaki is also basically getting any other Mikanko from the deck. So my philosophy, and I talked about this in my previous video, to me running Sanaki at 3 is like running Huli at 6. And to me, Huli is so great, I would love to run Huli at 6. So that's kind of the mindset I'm taking there, is the faster I can get Huli, the better. Sanaki is going to help me do that. And Sanaki is a great extender to get more bodies on the field to get your Xyz out, right? Nini, I'm running at 1. I do think Nini is worth running at 1. Just because she's one of the few forms of interruption the deck has. Obviously, the ideal play is I go second. I blow up their board with all my board breakers. I get my Xyz out and I swing 2 or 3 times per game with my Xyz. That's pretty much what I want to do now. So Nini's not going to be great for going second, but she's good in a grind game. And she's not useless to me going second because she's still a Mikanko I can put on the board that I can Xyz into my Xyz with. I can still attack with it and reflect damage if she's equipped. So she's not useless, but she doesn't search and she doesn't extend, which is why a lot of players maybe won't play Nini. She's definitely not a 2 or a 3. She's either a 1 or a 0. But I'm running her at 1. And once again, I like to have Mikanko names to at least just have something to use the equips on. Because at least Nini and an Arabesque, I can turn that into something, right? So there's still things you can do with Nini. And then the last for my monster lineup, which is the first board breaker you're going to see, is Lava Golem. I love Lava Golem at 3. Lava Golem to me, like anytime I open Lava Golem, like it makes me smile. Like I'm never mad to open Lava Golem. Unless my opponent's smart enough, like at my locals, like they all know my deck so well and they know I'm running this card like crazy. So they will sometimes not summon anything or intentionally only summon 1 because they know I run Lava Golem. But I find ways around it. I can use Fire Dance to summon something else, make Lava Golem happen. But to me, Lava Golem is my favorite board breaker because it's a card that my opponent literally cannot respond to. No matter how troublesome or powerful their monsters are, there's nothing they can do to stop this. There is no monster that you cannot Lava Golem except for a monster that, say, cannot be tributed, or a monster that allows me to not tribute or something, but that, like, people don't run stuff like that typically. So Lava Golem is just always good. The one bad thing about Lava Golem is it does take away my normal summon. But I do have my deck built with a lot of means to special summon. Mikanko inherently has a lot of ways to special summon, so typically we can work around that, right? So that is my monster lineup. Okay, next we will go into traps. We'll just slide those over here. Traps are very simple. There's only 3 in the whole deck, and they're all 1-ofs. So I'm just running 1 Mikanko Promise, 1 Mikanko Spirit Walk, 1 Mikanko Rivalry. The reason why you only run these at 1 is because you really don't want to draw them. You want to search for them with Huli and get it as an extra resource. And because they're searchable, you only need to run them at 1. And you want to run 1 of each, so you have the option based on the situation to grab what you want, right? Rivalry, the main way I use this is this can equip any monster on the field with a card from the deck. So typically I am equipping it to my opponent's monster to interrupt. This is my main interruption piece. So you can equip your opponent with, there's 2 equip cards that can negate their effects, either Axe of Fools, or, sorry, it's a newer one, so I got to remember the name of it, but I have it in here. You will see it later. Or Grief Tablet. So I've opted to go Grief Tablet instead of Axe of Fools. You could go either one, but I typically will use this, throw Grief Tablet on their monster so that their monster loses their effects. Or you can do like an equip card like Snatch Steal or something to take control. Something like that. Spirit Walk is also a nice interruption because I can just equip their monster to mine. So once again, if they're playing like a synchro deck, I can snag their tuner out of there, or I can let them synchro and then grab their synchro, provided it can't negate it, and equip it that way. So it's a good interruption. Promise is more like for grind game, and it's more to like ensure that I can survive a turn. So if I'm worried about my opponent, I know they're going to kind of be able to clear my board, I might get Promise as like a backup plan. And then Promise, basically, my opponent's not going to know what's face down necessarily, or typically I search for it so they'll know I have it, but a lot of people don't know what it does and they don't ask me what it does. So then I can surprise them, and then they think they're going to swing for game. I can play Promise, put a Mikanko out with an equip, and all of a sudden I've got a Huli that can't be targeted, that they can't destroy, and it can help me live a turn, right? So that's why I like running Promise. Now we have the spell cards. We will start with Mikanko equips and kind of go from there. So you want to run triple Arabesque for sure. This is the best equip Mikankos have. This card serves multiple purposes, right? It's searching for a Mikanko that you need, but it's also a board breaker because you can equip it to an opponent's monster. You can bounce their monster and then summon yours and then equip. So Arabesque is a nice board breaker. Typically what happens with Arabesque, if my opponent's got problematic monsters, I don't have Lava Golem to get rid of it. At the very least, I can use Arabesque to like bait out an effect, and then hopefully I have resources to kind of work through that. But otherwise, they could have a problematic monster and I can just bounce it, get rid of it, and all of a sudden they lose their body and I gain my Huli or whatever that's got the non-targeting, right? I like Fire Dance at 3. This is really important as well because this is like one of the better extenders and it's a special summon. So if I run Lava Golem, it's really nice to have this on hand so that I can special something after playing Lava Golem. The thing is this deck doesn't need much to win. You don't need to like combo off and do a million bajillion things. You literally just have to clear whatever problems they have on their board and then get your Xyz out. And if they can't answer your Xyz, you're going to guarantee win every time. And I'll explain how that works once we get to it. But Fire Dance is just a nice way to help me special summon, so we definitely like that. I'm running Mayawashi Dori at 2. This is great because when it's in the graveyard, it can help me special summon once again. And then if a Mikanko is equipped, I can bounce stuff. So I found the bouncing effect to be very useful with this. I've also done this where if I've dropped a Lava Golem on them and I attack into it, if I kind of know I'm going to be in for a grind game, I'll sometimes just attack the Lava Golem, bounce the Lava Golem back to my hand so I have it for the next turn. And then my opponent's kind of stuck because if they can't kill me and they try putting up a board, I can just follow up a Lava Golem again, which is really, really nice, right? And then at 1, Reflection Rondo at 1, this is definitely only a 1 of. This is basically your Snatch Steal of the deck. And I used to run this and Snatch Steal, but I felt like that was kind of too much. I kind of never liked drawing them. Like, you for sure don't like drawing this. And I kind of didn't like drawing Snatch Steal. Like, Snatch Steal is kind of a decent going second board breaker because obviously you can try to take their monster from them. But it's usually very easy for my opponent to negate it, whatever. It can only deal with one thing. It can bait out a negate, but I don't know. So I'm actually not running Snatch Steal in my deck, and I know a lot of Mikanko players love Snatch Steal. So don't think that Snatch Steal isn't good in the deck just because I'm not running it. It's something I'm going to definitely consider in the future still putting back in. I just need more playtesting. But the reason, and then you might say, well, Joe, why not just play Snatch Steal over this? I actually like this better because this is more searchable because a lot of my stuff will search only Mikanko cards. And this is non-targetable with Huli. The other situation that can happen with Snatch Steal is I can snatch it, take control of it, but if they have a spell or trap destruction and they can target it and destroy it very easily and just get their thing back. So to me, this is harder for them to get rid of because I'm typically going to have a Huli on board. They can't target this to get their monster back, and then I just kind of steal that body. The other restriction with this is I can't activate activated effects on the monster, whereas Snatch I could. So there's definitely like pros and cons to either one. So you just do it your preferences, or if you want to run both, and that's why I ran both, was so that I would have the option, right? If I wanted like to take control of it, but like safer where they can't destroy this, I would use this. But if they had a monster with like a really good activated effect, like a negate or something, then I would want to snatch it because then I can use that monster's ability myself, right? So definitely pros and cons. And then the other one of I'm running is Purification Dance. This is one I haven't typically run, but I've kind of like been liking this more as the more I kind of play around with it. And it's another form of interruption. So, you know, being that I'm a going second deck, this isn't like the craziest for going second, but it is a Mikanko equip that I can just equip to something, which is good enough. And then the interruption piece of it is when my opponent specials a monster, I can bounce their monster and bounce one of my monsters. The reason why I've kind of haven't played this in the past is because a lot of times my board, if I'm in a grindy game, I might just only have a Huli and nothing else. And I obviously do not want to bounce my Huli because I need that for non-targeting. But now with Sanaki and being able to special more, I feel like the deck is way more able to extend and put more bodies out. I think this card gains value because if I put out multiple extra bodies, then now I have an interruption piece and I don't care about bouncing one of my other monsters to do that. So I'm going to try this out. This is something I may cut later on, but for now I am definitely trying that out. The other Mikanko cards, so we're kind of done with Mikanko equips. There'll be other equips though. Mikanko Ceremony, I'm running at 1. This one I would consider, I've played it at 2 and I've played it at as many as 3. My old build before this, I ran 3 Lava Golem and 3 Hidden Armory, and all of those cards don't allow you to normal summon. So when I was playing 3 Hidden Armory, I was running more of this because I needed the special summon more. But because of the new support, I have taken out Hidden Armory because I'm playing 3 of the new spell card, which I feel like helps replace that. So I feel better about this only at 1 because it is a nice way to special. And the other reason I think it's safer to go to this at 1, I don't play Mikanko Kagura, which is the main ritual card. Especially in the old version of Mikanko, it's really like kind of wasteful to sacrifice like a Huli and a Hare just to bring out an Ohime that stays on the field. I usually liked keeping my little Mikankos out. I liked keeping the non-targeting. I found it very difficult to actually play the ritual spell and like have things that I was okay sacrificing other than if I had multiple Ohimes, right? So I've never run the ritual card. So Ceremony was really my only way of summoning Ohime. But now this card can also summon Ohime. And in my previous video, I forgot to mention that this also had that effect, which is really good. So Ceremony at 1 because of that. And then Ceremony from the graveyard also helps you dump stuff to the grave, which is really good. So I think this at 1, I'm fine with that. I would consider maybe upping that to 2. We'll see. But let's talk about this one I'm running at 3. This is the other new spell card. This is Mikanko Fire Dance Futahashira. And what this does, it's amazing because it is a foolish and pretty much like an equip search. So you play this, you're locked into Mikankos from the extra deck. You don't really care about that because that's all you really want to summon anyways. And the idea is you Foolish Burial a Mikanko card, and then you can set a Mikanko spell or trap to your field. And what I talked about in my previous video, the way I'm going to use this more often is just to set an equip, because you can play an equip to turn it a set. So it's essentially just searching your Mikanko equips out, right? Between this and the Xyz monster, it covers Hidden Armory. Hidden Armory was good because it searched any equip, not just Mikanko. This will search Mikanko equip, but then the Xyz can search any equip. So that kind of covers what Hidden Armory was doing. So I feel like I don't need that anymore, right? So I'll, like, at the end, I'll show you, like, a cool combo you can do with that, just as, like, a really nice opener, if, like, that's all you open, right? The other thing that this card can do is if it's in the graveyard, you can detach a material from an Xyz monster, and it can be any Xyz. It doesn't have to be a Mikanko Xyz. And you can use this effect to essentially special a ritual monster from your hand or deck. And it basically ignores the ritual summoning condition. So you can just summon Ohime directly from the deck with this, which is crazy because that it doesn't have the restriction of Ceremony where it has to bounce back to your hand. It's just on the field and it's live. And Ohime can kind of do Ohime things from there, which I think is really, really good. So I think this card's great. I think it is a 3-of because, once again, you're getting a Foolish and a Search in the same card. And it's essentially like a ritual summon as well. You can't use both the same turn. So like you could play this for the first turn to do your setup, get your Xyz out, and then once again, it's going to be more of like a grind game situation where you get to another turn, you have your Xyz, you can banish, get out Ohime and go crazy like that, right? And then other spell cards, we have 3 Preparation of Rites. This is to search out Ohime, obviously. Definitely want to do that. Then a couple of 1-ofs, we have Called by the Grave. I think Called by is actually extremely important in this deck because the thing this deck is most susceptible to is that interruption, and you're going second, right? So you don't want an Ash to ruin your plays. Droll hurts this deck really bad. The most common thing that happens to me, right, is I'll have Preparation of Rites. I'll play Prep to search the Ohime, then they Droll me, and then I can't even use Ohime's effect. And then I'll have like other things like all the Mikankos, not all of them, but Huli and Hare, they both search on equip. You can't get that off the Droll. Like, Droll kills you. So you need Called By. You need a way to answer a hand trap. So that's why I am main decking the Called By. I feel like it's just so essential for this deck. Especially, once again, my ideal is I'm trying to win on my first turn. So I need everything, disposal of everything at my power to try to break their board, not get interrupted, right? And be able to make my play. And then a couple of generic equips. We have Grief Tablet and we have Double-Edged Sword. Double-Edged Sword is what's going to really make the OTK super easy. I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't be surprised when this stuff officially drops. I would not be surprised if they ban this card, especially if this deck becomes a problem in the meta. I don't know if it will be, but I think Double-Edged Sword would actually go before even, say, Huli. Huli and Double-Edged Sword are the two most at-risk ban list things in this deck. Okay, Double-Edged Sword, if you're not familiar with it, when any monster battles that is equipped with this, they gain 2,000 attack, and both you and your opponent take the damage. So what happens is either if my Mikanko is equipped or if their monster is equipped and we battle, we would both take the damage, but then my Mikanko reflects my half at them. So essentially, whatever the damage is, the opponent takes double that damage. So this allows for OTKs like crazy. The general idea in like the old version of the deck is a standard setup would be our standard like quick win for me would be summon Lava Golem to their side, equip it with a Double-Edged Sword, put it at 5,000, and then have like an equipped Huli attack Lava Golem once. It deals 5,000 to both of us, but I reflect my 5 at my opponent. It's a one-shot 10,000 damage, right? So Double-Edged Sword is incredibly powerful. Grief Tablet is my monster effect negate that I'm running. So this is what I pick off of Rivalry. So you only want to run it at 1 because it's typically not something you want to draw. It's not useless if you draw it because it can help board break, right? You equip it to the problem monster. You either bait out the negate or they get equipped with it, right? So, I mean, it's not terrible to draw it, but you'd rather play it off of like a Rivalry and search it. Grief Tablet makes it so the monster's effects are negated, and that monster cannot be tributed. And if this goes to the graveyard because the monster leaves the field, your opponent takes 500. So it can do a little chip damage too, but it's mainly just the monster negate. Now there's also Axe of Fools, which is what I ran before this. Axe of Fools also negates the monster effect and increases their attack by 1,000. So you could almost argue Axe of Fools is better because it increases the attack. But to me, it's like the way I'm set up, like that 1,000 attack usually isn't going to make or break the win. Double-Edged Sword is what I'm going to try to go for to win anyways. And Grief Tablet, it's very subtle, but the fact that the opponent's monster can't be tributed actually can be kind of good against certain things. There are some decks that like to tribute stuff. Not always the most common, but for example, if I'm playing like a Rika player, like Rika stuff, they like to tribute, right? And if they have Grief Tablet down and they can't tribute their Rika monster, like that can be kind of good. So I think just because the main to me, the main purpose of Axe of Fools or Grief Tablet, it's the monster negate. That's why I'm running it, right? So to me, the idea of the no tributing kind of outweighs the 1,000 attack because it's just a little bit, once again, it's going to be situational, but it could definitely come into play, okay? Then we're going to round out my board breakers. So before, as we had talked about, we had Lava Golem, 3 Lava Golem. Now I'm main decking Harpy's Feather Duster and 2 Lightning Storms. Okay. Now you might argue, well, Joe, why would you want to use Lightning Storm to destroy their monsters? Because if they have an empty board, you can't attack into them. Well, the way this deck operates now, my opponent can have no monsters and I can still OTK with the Xyz, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But my opponent doesn't have to have monsters. I was even pondering the idea of chucking Raigekis into here, to be honest. I just don't have the room for it. But like, if I can just board clear whatever, or just have monsters that can't negate me or stop me, like that's good. But the reason why I don't think I would run Raigeki, because it's not important that their monsters are gone. I just need to bait out their negates, get rid of the interruption that the monsters might have. But obviously, I want to attack into monsters, so them having monsters isn't a problem. So the reason I run Storm is because Storm is helpful in that it can clear spells and traps, which is the problem I would want to get rid of, right? But I have the option to target the monsters if I do need to bait out a negate, or if there's still a problem on the field that I know is going to mess up my combo. It's still good to like go after the monster to make my opponent respond to it, right? So I'm just thinking anything I can do to clear. And then the new spicy card I have in here that I've actually really been liking is I'm running triple Gordian Slicer. Gordian Slicer is great because it's a little restricted in that, you know, I have to have materials to pay for it, and it only hits face up stuff. So not being able to hit face down can kind of hurt, but most people aren't setting flip effect. Like setting monsters face down isn't really a thing in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm not worried about that. It's more spells or traps that I would maybe want to get rid of. Could be a problem, but that's what the Feather Duster and the Storms are for, right? So Gordian Slicer, typically what I'll do, this is great in Mikanko because the extra deck isn't super, I mean, the extra deck is really important in the deck now because of the new Xyz, but outside of that monster, I can get away with getting rid of a lot of stuff. So typically what I do with this, I can target any number of cards my opponents control, and your opponent cannot negate the effect or activation of the card. They can respond to it. So they can still chain to this, but they can't actually negate Gordian Slicer, right? So Gordian Slicer is going to guaranteed get its activation off. And typically this will be to get rid of their pesky extra deck monsters. And it's going to bounce them to the hand. And typically what I'll do is if I draw a Gordian Slicer, I will usually hit 2 of their things, and then I have to banish 12 cards from my extra deck. But I get to choose, so it doesn't matter. I can also banish from hand, but you can't do a combination. You can't do like 1 from hand and 6 from extra deck. You choose extra deck or hand, and then all of your materials have to come from that source. So typically my first Gordian Slicer, I will do 12 from the extra deck, because to me, I'm not losing any extra resources. It's just I'm playing 1 card, getting rid of 2 of theirs, which is great. If I draw multiple Gordian Slicer, which has happened, I can still live with that because I can still get 2 off of the first one. And then the second one, if they still have something else, I can either hold it in hand and just have it, or I can just get rid of, you know, 1 thing from my hand. Or if they have a really bad board, I've banished 2 from hand in the same turn. You just lack a lot of resources at that point. But my thought is between 3 Gordian Slicer, 3 Lava Golem, Lightning Storms, Heavy Feather Duster, right? Like all of that stuff. And then Arabeska's a natural board breaker as well. I've got a lot of things to deal with my opponent's board. So that's really the main concept of my deck here is a going second deck. So that's the main deck. And like I said, that ended up being 45. Now over time, if I'm finding I'm not liking the 45 card build, I will take some 3-ofs and probably cut them down to 2 and get it down closer to 40, right? So that is the main deck. All the main deck stuff. Let's go over extra deck next, and then I'll talk about side deck. So extra deck, let's talk about the main thing that matters, which is Uzuhime. Now, you don't have to run this at 3, but I'm running it at 3, and I talked about my concept behind this. I always want access to this. I don't want to have a chance that I don't have this. So in my side deck, we'll talk about, I do play Pot of Extravagance for going first. And I want the least likely chance that I lose all of my access to this if I play a Pot of Extravagance turn 1. For that, and then if I'm playing like a Dogmatica player or a Kashtira player, they can target the extra deck. So if I'm only running one of these, they're guaranteed going to get it out of my deck as soon as possible. So because the extra deck isn't super important in terms of like room for stuff, I'm just maxing out on this because I need this card. And because my deck now with the new cards, they restrict you to only Mikanko from the extra deck, I feel like if you're playing pure Mikanko, you just have to max out on this because you don't want to not have it, right? Some other Link monsters we are running. We've got Ashura King. This was my old like extra deck. Like if my opponent doesn't summon anything, that I would bring this out. Oh, here, let's talk about Uzuhime quick. So, because this is a new card. So let's go back to Uzuhime. So it's a rank 3. You have to bring it out with 2 Mikankos. On summit, and it adds any equip card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So this is a walking hidden armory. So the idea with this is I summon this, I can search for double-edged sword, and I can put double-edged sword either on her or on my opponent's monster. The other thing that this card does is when it declares an attack, at the end of the damage step, I can detach material and it can attack again. And something I didn't realize when I first went over the profile, that effect is not limited to once per turn. So this character can actually attack 3 times in a turn, which is crazy. I'm going to read it again just to make sure because I've got it here. Yeah, if it attacks at the end of the damage step, you can detach material, make another attack in the row. You can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. Yeah, so specifically, the first effect that searches can only be used once per turn, right? That's pretty awesome. And then like the other Mikankos, it can't be destroyed by battle, and your opponent takes the damage. And then you can detach, and every time you detach, it gets an extra attack, which is crazy. So the other thing I forgot to mention in my other video was I talked about, okay, your opponent has to have a monster with even 0 attack is fine. You equip with a double-edged sword, gets 2,000 attack, and this swings twice and you've got game. Well, even if my opponent doesn't summon anything, right? Let's say my opponent's board is empty. I summon this, search double-edged sword, and equip double-edged sword to her. That gives her 2,000 attack. She swings. We both take 2,000, but my 2,000 gets reflected onto my opponent. My opponent takes 4,000. Then I just detach, swing again, and it's 4,000. And for some reason, if that isn't enough, I detach again, and I can swing for another 4,000. So this character, with my opponent not even having a monster, can do 12,000 points of damage. And it literally searches double-edged sword. It searches the win condition. So this is why I'm very skeptical that double-edged sword is going to survive long enough to see this deck. I feel like because this card makes it so easy, they're going to see double-edged sword as a problem, and I think double-edged sword is going to get banned because of this card. But for now, I'm running it because it's legal, right? But by the time this hits the TCG, I would not be surprised they ban double-edged sword. The only way they don't ban it is if, for some reason, like if this literally does nothing in the meta, which is certainly possible, and maybe they ignore it and it just goes under the wayside and I get to use my double-edged sword and I'll be happy. But this is so easy. And remember, Sanaki basically just turns into this. You just need Sanaki and an equip, turns into this, turns into double-edged sword, turns into OTK. Crazy card. Crazy, crazy card. Ashura King was like the way harder version to deal. So what I would do in the past, my opponent doesn't summon anything, I would bring this out, but you need 3 materials for this, which in the older version was harder. With Sanaki, it's actually going to be easier to get this out, but you're going to go to this. This is way more efficient. But this can attack 3 times, and it does 7,500 damage if all 3 attacks go through. Okay, so that's why Ashura King is there. Then we have like Downward Magician and Zeus. This is just, if I have either one of these, I feel like I'm going to be into a grind state. I can go Downward and then Zeus from there. The only thing you have to be careful of is if you've used cards that lock you into Mikanko, you can't go from this into Downward into Zeus. You can't do that. So if you have a turn where you haven't done an effect that locks you into Mikanko, which I believe it comes from Sanaki or the new spell. So if you use either of those effects, then you're not going to be able to get into this. So there's a part of me that, you know, almost feels like you could drop this package if you wanted more room, because I feel like it's very rare. I can't think of many situations where, I mean, I guess there are some, right, where I could get 2 level 3s out without using Sanaki, without using the spell, and I just need to make like something. Then yes, I think this is still kind of worth having, but it's not going to happen as often because I do get extra deck lock now, right? Then we have Typhon. Typhon's just like the emergency, like I've got nothing, I've got kind of a dead hand, I can't combo, but my opponent did stuff. So what could happen is my opponent does a really huge play. I've got a bunch of board breakers, but I've got no Mikanko follow-up. I can just throw a monster on board and make this, and it's something, and I've broken the board. So that, I feel like this is just kind of a staple. You just run it because it can do stuff, right? For links, we have SP, IP. Those are kind of staple-ish, easy to use. And then I just have like a bunch of elemental charmers just because this deck has a bunch of elements packed into it. It's got what? Fire, wind, and earth all in the normal Mikanko, and water all in the normal Mikanko monsters. It's got light in the extra deck stuff. And it can get dark by taking control of an opponent's monster. So I think Charmers, you can just run. I used to run all the Charmers. I think I took the Dark Charmer out because that's the one I can't naturally make with the deck to make room for other stuff. But these are just here, like grind game. Like I can't really do much, but I can make a Charmer and maybe steal something from my opponent's graveyard and play from that. That's all. This is why, like I said, the extra deck isn't super important to me. I'm just running a bunch of generic stuff. This is what's important. There is one more card here, though, that is really important. That actually is an important piece, and it's a part of my side deck, but I just have it in the extra deck because I don't care about room. But I have an El Shaddai Winda in here. Now, you might see Winda and think, what the heck does that have to do with Mikanko? In my side deck, I'll just talk about it now. We'll go through the side deck in a second. But remember, my side deck I have is going first stuff. And a going first play that's actually sneaky good in Mikanko is you can run Instant Fusion. And so what Instant Fusion will do is it can summon Winda from the extra deck. And Winda is going to make it so your opponent can only special summon. Well, it makes it so both players can only special once per turn, right? So this is a great thing to have on board if you're going first to shut your opponent down. The problem, you say, well, why don't other decks run Instant Fusion and do this? Well, the problem is at the end of the turn, Instant Fusion will kill this monster. It'll destroy it. But what Mikanko has is all of the Mikanko equips say the equip monster cannot be destroyed by card effects. So if you open Instant Fusion and a Mikanko equip, you can set up a board, put out Winda, throw a Mikanko equip on it. At the end of turn, Instant Fusion tries to destroy this and it cannot because the Mikanko equip protects it. And then all of a sudden, I've got like Huli and you can't target. I've got Winda and you can't special more than once. The opponent gets really locked down. If they can't deal with it, they're only going to maybe play like 1 or 2 monsters and not have a lot of response. And then on my turn, I can just go heavy and kill them. So Winda is actually like super cool to play in this deck. I legitimately, like up here, to me, these are the 4 most important extra deck cards. Once again, I know this is weird because it's only for siding for going first, but it's really effective when it hits, right? All right. That being said, let's go into the side deck now and look at it. Whoops, hold on. Sorry, I did not mean to hit that. Sorry about that. I accidentally hit a button here. So that I've got my playmat on top of my keyboard, so I accidentally like nicked a button. So just ignore that there. But let's go to side deck quick. So for the side deck, I am siding Lancia right now only at 2. I probably should have 3, but you know, with Malice and there's other stuff that likes to banish, Lancia is just good in the format right now. I've got 3 Drolls just because Droll's really good in the format. At my locals, it really kills a lot of decks. And is good like going first, right, to shut my opponent down. Or it's not necessarily good going first, but like if I have this and I go first, like it can still help on the follow-up, right? Droplet is kind of good going first or second. So I just have that in there is really good. For specific to going first, I do have Extravagance because once again, the reason I don't main deck this is being that I'm opting to go second. You don't want to open this going second typically because your opponent's probably going to have a response to it more often than not. I would rather have a board breaker, right? So like this can be good going second because if it goes and it actually goes through, then I could draw board breakers. But I like this better just as going first to help like extend and get more stuff going on, right? Instant Fusion, once again, the purpose is just for Winda there. Once again, I only want that going first. Going second, my opponent's already set up their board. Winda is going to be useless at that point. 3-dimensional barrier, just because dimensional barrier is really good, but it's only good against certain decks. But D-barrier, I think, is always a good side deck option. There can be only one. I've run this in the main. It's really good in the main. But going second, this is almost useless to me, and my focus is I want board breakers. So I prefer this if I'm going first. This is a great card to set going first and disrupt your opponent. Now, my last card, it's going to be very weird, and you're going to think I'm crazy for playing this, but my last side deck card is Anti-Spell Fragrance. And you might be saying to yourself, Joe, you're running a deck with 1 million spell cards. This is more often going to hurt you more than your opponent, right? Here's why I like to run it. The bane of my existence is after siding and I choose to go first. If I'm going first, I don't know what it is, but I feel like 80% of the time my opponent opens Lightning Storm or Feather Duster. And the last thing I want is to set up my Huli, put all my equips out. If they destroy my back row, I like always lose. So my thought process with Anti-Spell Fragrance, I want something in my side deck so that if I go first and I draw it, it's going to... I'm thinking of this as a way to protect my back row. So the idea with this is I go first. I hopefully draw this. I do all of my plays first. I set up my board. I got a bunch of Mikankos equipped. I set this face down. My opponent's draw or standby phase, I flip this over. And if they have their Feather Duster and their Storms, they are useless. Not to mention... this is going to hurt a lot of decks in the game that play spells. And then the idea with this, because I went first, I didn't have the opportunity to attack. I set up my board. I have this out. And then they pass to me. My board should already be set enough where I can maybe hopefully attack and go into game. My Xyz doesn't need to have an equip on it. I mean, it would want Double-Edged Sword. But if I play something like Ohime to equip direct from grave, something like that, there are ways I can equip stuff direct that's not from my hand that I can get around this. But to me, it's just so important for protecting my board and kind of slowing down my opponent. I think this is actually a very interesting tech card for Mikanko to have in the side deck for a going first strategy. So that's kind of my thoughts there. You guys can let me know what you think of the deck, but let me just show you really quick a little bit of what like the new stuff can do. So a quick example here of how you can do so much with very little, right? Let's say, for example, your opening hand, you just have this and like nothing else, right? So you can play this, you can foolish something and then set something. So an idea is you could foolish, so Mayawashi Dori is always a good target for foolishing because then from the graveyard it can special. But in this situation, because you're going to get the equip card at the same time, you could say foolish a monster. So let's say I foolish Sanaki, and then I can set to the field Fire Dance, right? So then I can maybe set Fire Dance to the field. So I activate this, set Fire Dance, I send Sanaki to grave, right? This goes to grave. I can activate this to summon Sanaki. And then when Sanaki gets equipped, Sanaki's going to go ahead and special one. So then what I could do is I could special Hare if I want extension, or I could special Huli if I want non-targeting. But let's say I special Hare out. Okay, so I could special Hare. I can use her effect to bounce this the hand. Now, the one thing you have to be careful with this is you can't just equip this to a monster, and it's only a once per turn. So this would just be in my hand for like use later on. But the hope would be that I would maybe have another equip in hand, right? So let's say I had like a Mayawashi Dori. I could equip the Hare with Mayawashi Dori, and then maybe I could search for Arabesque. So I could grab Arabesque, which once again, searching my deck here. It's like I just had this in order. I could search Arabesque, and then maybe equip Arabesque to an opponent's monster, bounce that for a Huli, and then I could have, say, a Huli on board, just as an example. Huli's going to search a trap, I'd have a trap on board. Being able to have this, or even if I open Sanaki normal it and get Mayawashi Dori, that's a great card to equip to her. Summon the Hare, bounce it, and then equip the Hare, search the equip, search the equip, something like that. And then what you would do is you would exceed these off. So you exceed these. Mayawashi Dori then goes to grave, which is great. Grab the Xyz out, I've got this. So the general idea is to get something like this where I have the Xyz and I have the non-targeting. This is going to search any equip in the deck. So this is where you search your double-edged sword, just once again demoing like a basic combo, right? If my opponent has nothing on board, double-edged sword on her, swing for 4,000, detach, swing again for 4,000. If my opponent has a monster on board, equip this to the opponent's monster, swing for however much damage, detach, swing again is probably game at that point. So the fact that this gets double-edged sword to me is crazy insane. And if this is my ideal board, I just set up going second, I get non-targeting, and I have this, and it's like going to be GG's. The problem is the deck is fragile. It's very susceptible to interruption, and you can get some bricky draws with it because you could just draw a bunch of equips with nothing to use it on, and then you're kind of screwed at that point. But anyways, you guys let me know what you think. Right now, this is how I'm going to roll with my Mikanko deck. I would love to hear from other Mikanko players about strategies and things that you've tried. Oh, I should mention really quick, just so people don't think I'm like dumb and don't know other strategies. Like I know of other things Mikanko players do. Like I know that there's the Ken and Jen strategy and getting Acid Golem. I just don't like that. The reason I like this deck is because Yu-Gi-Oh is so complicated with these combo decks, and it like breaks my brain, and I hate all the combos. This deck is very simple as is, and you don't have to do a lot of fancy combos. That whole Acid Golem with, the Transverser Link, whatever, like it's so complicated to me, and I don't want to sit and learn it. And now that I'm locked into Mikankos more, it's going to be harder to do that stuff anyways. I know early on, I was playing around with like using Diviner of Herald, like for ritual stuff. I know that stuff people have done. And obviously I know Kaijus are a thing you can run in here as well. I've just always preferred Lava Golem to have getting multiple things. If I find that Lava Golem's like taking away the normal in this version really hurts, I could switch those out to Kaijus. I could take them out altogether and just try to have the Gordian Slicers be enough. But right now, this is what I'm thinking for the deck. Let me know what y'all think. Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.